Have you ever wanted to take a day trip to a small Pennsylvania town or hike through the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, but don't want to deal with the traffic, high gas prices, and windy mountain roads? The Center County Highway Revolt is a citizen-led initiative trying to save farms and forests, combat climate change, and boost small-town economies by building a rail transit network across the state. The plan calls for connections to existing Amtrak trains. Learn more at centercountyhighwayrevolt.org. All right, Philly, big election coming up next week. And while you may know the candidates in the race for a district attorney, unless you are a really informed voter, you may not know all the people running to be judges. And you may not know how to decide who to vote for in the 4 separate judicial races. So to help make sense of all of the candidates for judge listed on the May 20th primary ballot, we're bringing in expert Matt Olesh, chair of the Philadelphia Bar Association's campaign for qualified judges. It's Wednesday, May 14th. I'm Trinae Nuri, and we're talking Philly politics. Matt, why do we even vote for judges?
It's a really good question, because that's what our state constitution and laws say that we do. It differs state to state for state court judges. You may know federal judges are appointed by the president whenever there's a vacancy, and those are lifetime appointments. State court judges, some states appoint, some states elect, and we have always elected our judges, and there's positives and negatives to that.
What are some of the positives?
I think the people who are proponents of it would say that it really creates somewhat of a level playing field, and it allows representative democracy. It allows people to have a say in who becomes judges. When you appoint them, it's really just, who knows what happens behind the scenes with appointments, but ultimately it's a small group of people who are making those decisions.
And the cons would be?
I think that the system of elected judges allows for people who are not necessarily qualified to be a judge. They can run and they can win. And it's a tough system because typically there's a decent number of vacancies every 2 years, especially here in Philadelphia. There's a lot of people who run. It's really hard for democracy to actually work when you have, there could be 15, 16 candidates for 5, 6 spots, and your average voter is not going to be able to do all of the diligence needed to make an informed vote.
Okay, Matt, if I'm a registered voter, I walk into the voting booth on Tuesday, May 20th. What is laid out before me?
So you'll see the ballot, which has all of the races that are up for election this coming primary. The main citywide race is for district attorney. There are 2 primary candidates. There's also some statewide judicial races, and there are our local Philadelphia judicial races. There's the Court of Common Pleas. There are 11 candidates for 9 spots. And then we have the municipal court. There are 5 candidates for 3 spots.
And we'll also be voting on Commonwealth Court and Superior Court. Those are statewide?
Yes, those are the statewide vacancies that are up for election.
Some of these races, like you said, are competitive, some are not, and it depends if you're voting in the Democratic or Republican primary. Here in Pennsylvania, we have closed primaries, so you have to be registered in one party or another to vote. So there's currently 1 open seat at the Commonwealth Court, and there's only 1 Democrat running for that seat, but 2 Republicans running in the GOP primary. How many competitive races are we talking about?
So on the Democratic side, you have 1 candidate for Commonwealth Court, and she's an excellent candidate. The Republican side has 2 candidates. The winners of those 2 will meet in the fall. And those are definitely competitive races in the general election because they're statewide. And the makeup of our statewide appellate courts is very important and very important politically. In terms of our local judicial elections, the Court of Common Pleas is pretty competitive. The municipal court is very competitive, just by nature of how many candidates there are on the Democratic side. And really, again, it serves as the de facto election because everyone who wins the primary is going to get elected in the general. They're not competitive in the fall, but they're competitive now.
Let's break down what each of the courts actually does. So, municipal court, what they handle like low level assaults and landlord tenant disputes, contract cases under $12,000.
Yeah, any sort of civil lawsuit under $12,000 in damages is a municipal court. They also handle some preliminary criminal matters and some smaller criminal matters. And then, yeah, they also have landlord-tenant disputes.
Then you have the Court of Common Pleas. They handle higher level criminal assault and some felony cases over $12,000.
Yes, generally speaking, that's under the Court of Common Pleas jurisdiction. And then anything above that amount automatically goes to the Court of Common Pleas. So judges will handle those civil matters, also criminal matters. There's family court as well. And typically what will happen is when a judge in the Court of Common Pleas is elected, they'll get assigned to one of those places. You'll either get civil, family, orphans, criminal, and really anything that's not handled by municipal court, or certainly there's things that can be run in federal court, but that's the main court where the vast majority of cases are.
Then on the state side, there's the Commonwealth Court, which handles like high profile cases.
So the appellate level, there's both the Commonwealth and Superior Courts, and they both are kind of parallel. When you take an appeal from the Court of Common Pleas, it'll go to one of those two places depending on what type of case it is. The general civil matters and criminal matters will go to Superior Court. Matters involving government issues. A few years ago, I was working on the soda tax case with the city. That sort of thing was appealed to the Commonwealth Court. So they handle a lot of the governmental regulation type of stuff.
So how is an average voter supposed to know who to vote for when it comes to these judgeships? Is that a term, judgeships?
Sure, it can be.
Okay. How are you supposed to make some sort of determination of how well judges do in their jobs? And I've always been curious, like, why a judge even needs to be a Democrat or a Republican.
From a conceptual standpoint, you're absolutely right. There shouldn't be political ideology when we have sitting judges. It should be you're interpreting the law as it's written, you're interpreting case precedent. Personal ideological beliefs should not go into judicial decisions, as we've seen all the way up to the Supreme Court and certainly down at the local level. It inevitably does. Philadelphia is a Democratic city. Our Democratic candidates wind up winning. In terms of how voters are supposed to be informed about the candidates, it's a challenge, but that's why the Philadelphia Bar Association, which I'm affiliated with, does a very extensive job of investigating and rating all of the candidates who are up for certainly Philadelphia judgeships and at times statewide judgeships as well, if there's a connection to Philadelphia for those candidates. And so we would hope that voters can consider our ratings when voting, because to do the extensive work to figure out who's qualified is, even if a voter were to take a couple hours and just start Googling people or doing their own diligence, it's really hard. And there's not a lot that's publicly available that one could really put together.
So how does the Philadelphia Bar Association vet all of these candidates?
The Bar Association has a judicial commission. It's made up of volunteers who are appointed either by virtue of their position, elected positions at the Bar Association. There are positions for the district attorney's office, the U.S. attorney's office, community positions, lay people who are not lawyers. And we also have a team of investigators who go out and each are assigned to a different candidate. There are teams of typically between 3 and 5 attorneys per candidate. And there's also one layperson on each investigation team. The investigators do a deep dive of everything and anything that they can find out about the candidate, interview the candidate, and there's a whole process that they go through.
What are some of the criteria that would make a candidate get your approval?
So on our website, there's a list of all the criteria that need to be met. If a candidate does not meet one of the criteria, they would not be recommended. But if they meet all of the criteria, they are things such as legal ability, courtroom experience, temperament. Judicial temperament is a really important one to make sure that all litigants are treated fairly before the court, especially in places like municipal court. Municipal court is essentially our small claims court for matters under a certain amount of money. And it's
like $12,000?
$12,000, yeah. So a lot of people, for matters like that, it's not even sensible to hire an attorney. They go it on their own. And so having a judge that has the temperament to extend courtesies and really have the patience to listen to whoever's before them is critical. There's other things, financial ability, financial responsibility, I would say, just because we don't want candidates who are indebted and beholden to people, because there's an ability for people to exert leverage over judges. Community involvement, public service, things like that. There's a whole long list, and we really want to make sure that people check all the boxes.
More on this season's election for judges after the break. Hey, while you're making the perfect itinerary for summer, add the Williamstown Theater Festival to your list. From July 17th to August 3rd in the Berkshire Mountains in northwestern Massachusetts, over 130 artists will take stage for nearly 100 performances. Go to WTFfestival.org, choose a weekend, and buy a pass. Weekend passes get you into 8 shows, including a world premiere by Jeremy O. Harris, Pamela Anderson, and Nicholas Alexander Chavez for a new adaptation of Tennessee Williams' Camino Real. Discounted hotel rooms are available through June 1st. Go to WTFfestival.org and make your plans to immerse yourself in theater this summer.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic, clear, and well organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city. This episode of CityCast is sponsored by Babbel. Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, maybe even a whole new life. So why not start the journey today with Babbel? You can start speaking a new language with confidence thanks to Babbel's conversation-based technique. It quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. There are more than a dozen languages available for you to learn at your own pace, with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel and brushing up a teeny bit on my French. But there's also Turkish, Swedish, Dutch, German, many more languages. Babbel's tips and tools for learning a new language are approachable and accessible. It's like having a private tutor in your pocket. I particularly love Babbel's guided conversations, which let me practice real-world conversations. What to say at the doctor's office, how to leave a party. using speech recognition to make sure I'm getting the pronunciation right. Babbel's mobile app and website have real-time feedback, progress trackers, and clear visualizations. They're helping me improve my Spanish in only 10 minutes a day. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
How different are your bar association ratings from, say, the Democratic and Republican Party endorsements?
So the Bar Association's process is nonpartisan. We evaluate every candidate based on their own individual merit. Political affiliation is not taken into consideration. Each party has their own process for determining endorsements. I certainly can't speak to either or for either of them, but some years we line up, some years we don't. I think what we've really tried to do in recent years, the Bar Association and when I'm involved with the Campaign for Qualified Judges, which is tasked with promoting the judicial ratings across the city, is really try to make them matter, to show everyone that we can affect the vote. Because for a long time, we would just be out there at SEPTA stations handing out flyers. This was, many years ago. And without any rhyme or reason of who we would be handing it to. It could be people who live in the suburbs who are going on the train to get out there and might not actually be voters of the city.
So you felt maybe like it wasn't as effective.
Just kind of tried our best. But about, I'd say maybe a decade ago, maybe a little more, we really tried to overhaul how we handle dissemination of our ratings to try to get maximum impact in the election. And we have a goal every cycle, as you can imagine, of having every candidate who is elected be either recommended or highly recommended by the association. We do direct mail pieces, we do online ads, we do a lot of outreach to community groups, to wards. Really, honestly, anyone who will listen to me talk, I'm happy to talk to. And I will try to get to as many voters as we can. And it's really worked. We've had studies done on this to show our impact on the vote. We've had people at polling places handing out our literature, and we were able to analyze our effect and impact at those polling places versus where we didn't have volunteers. And we saw it really makes a difference. So just that in itself will allow the parties to see how impactful we are, and it forces them to consider our ratings. Because if there's one thing I can say about the party endorsements, it's they want to endorse winners. They don't want to be endorsing someone and then that person doesn't win. It doesn't look good for them and what their endorsement means.
How do you, ensure that you all are staying true to your own ethics and guidelines and that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we always strive to hold each other accountable and do better every time we can. The people who comprise the Judicial Commission it's a very diverse group of mostly lawyers, but also, as I said before, non-lawyers. And it's a large enough group where there's consistency over the years, but there's also turnover. So we get a variety of perspectives. And the goal is to be as representative of the city and the city's legal community as we can. And there are thresholds that have to be met, and everyone has to vote to determine if a candidate will be recommended or highly recommended. There are checks on that. When someone is voting not recommended against a candidate, you have to identify which categories you feel they don't meet. We provide that feedback to the candidates. We also have the investigative teams, and the reason why it's not just one or two people is making sure that we have, again, diversity amongst the investigative teams, but also accountability. And the investigative teams will make a recommendation as to the rating to the full commission. Sometimes the commission adopts that rating, sometimes they don't. Everyone is being objective, and that's how the process should work.
Okay, Matt, what are some of the most interesting races this year? Which candidates should we keep an eye on?
So I think from where I sit, municipal court is really an interesting race. Maybe not in a good way, but it is what it is. So there are 5 candidates for 3 spots. only one candidate is recommended by the Bar Association. So we have 4 candidates who are running and are not recommended, which means that 2 people are going to get elected who are not recommended, which is not optimal, but that's the candidate pool we have to work with. So it's really important for voters to pay attention to that race. It's something that everyone should be aware of. On the Court of Common Pleas side, 9 people are recommended. Those are also the same 9 people who are party endorsed. So everything has kind of lined up this year. It's still very important. Obviously, we need people to vote for those candidates, but a little less of a interesting race there. The one interesting thing that happened was there was one candidate, Michael Huff, who was facing a challenge to his eligibility for the ballot. This had gone on for a number of weeks after petitions were filed. I believe the challenge was based on his residency or lack of residency. There was a decision made at the first court. It went all the way up to the state Supreme Court, and then it went back down to the lower court. And so it was kind of ping-ponging back and forth about whether he would be on the ballot. And just recently, it was determined conclusively that he is not eligible for office. However, because it happened so late in the process, his name is still going to appear on voters' ballots. So it's important for voters to be aware that he is not eligible for office. And if you cast a vote for him, then it will not count.
The turnout for primary elections, especially when there's no presidential candidate or a mayoral candidate on the ballot, is low. So a few votes here or there can really tip these kinds of elections. Matt, can you explain the impact of that?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. It's turnout for off-year elections. Certainly, typically the DA election, which is every 4 years on this cycle, is not great.
I mean, it matters, right? Like the DA's decisions and even the court's decisions. Like these are the elected positions that really touch a lot of Philadelphians.
It's really important. Judges have enormous power in a lot of ways. You see on the national level, but it also on the state level and the local level. They're really a check on democracy, and they're in many ways the last line of defense for democracy, because they're the ones who can say if something is allowed or not allowed. So to kind of not pay attention to it is a risk. There's a long history of ballot position mattering in...
I was just going to ask you that. Oh, you're right in my brain. Because where your name is listed on the ballot, that also matters.
It does matter. And it's something that's of enormous consequence.
And so essentially the issue is that if you're higher up on the ballot, if your name is first, you get the votes?
History has shown that the top ballot positions are more likely to get votes, especially when voters go in and don't know who to vote for. In the primaries, when there's a lot of candidates, sometimes voters will just pick the first however many, or even just the first one, just to someone. It's the first name I see. It's just human nature. It's just how people are. So that's something we have to fight against. If our ratings matter, it's because we can overcome people in early ballot positions who perhaps are not recommended. And of late, we've done a really good job. There's been great success in overcoming ballot position. But it's something we're always mindful of. And when you talk about the importance of judicial elections, the reality is that any eligible attorney can get the number of signatures, go put their hand to draw out a number out of the coffee can or hat or whatever receptacle is being used, get number one, and have a pretty good shot at being a judge, regardless of how qualified that person may or may not be. And as a lawyer, which I am, that's terrifying. So it just goes to really show how important it is that people take these elections seriously.
Wow, picking your name out of a tin can.
Yeah, it's happened. People have gotten number one and they've gotten elected. And, I'll say some people who have gotten elected that way are excellent judges. Some may not be. It's just the fear is that shouldn't be how we elect judges. Picking a number a random number should not be how we determine who becomes a judge. And there are initiatives, there's potential for ballot randomization. There are things that I think really would be helpful in that process, because if you can randomize the ballot for each voter, or maybe in every polling place or ward, I'm not sure how it would work specifically, but something that would eliminate that as a factor in who gets elected. Because I would hope there could be universal agreement that that shouldn't be how we pick who gets any elected office.
Matt Olesh, chair of the Philadelphia Bar Association's Campaign for Qualified Judges, thank you so much for breaking this all down with me on CityCast Philly.
It's my pleasure.
For a list of judges vetted and approved by the Campaign for Qualified Judges, which Matt Olesh chairs, go to electqualifiedjudges.com. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. We're actually going to continue this conversation about the May 20th primary and what's on the ballot in this week's Friday News Roundup. So make sure you tune in. You can also share this episode with your neighbor, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're signed up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye. It's very impressive, like how you can take like law and like translate it into layman's terms.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Yeah.
I'll tell my bosses that.
I mean, like law stuff is like all like it's a different language.
It can be.